Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing author experts of a new book that we have coming out called The Ancestors Within. This is volume 3 of that series. Recognize and embrace the gifts of your origins. Ladies, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yes,
Good morning.
it's happening.
So happy to be here.
You all are the first interview in this beautiful series. And let me tell you all who I have here with me. Bernadette Pleasant is a fiery, sensual speaker, somatic healer, sacred grief ritual facilitator, creator of the Emotional Institute, and am I getting that right, Bernadette?
You
okay, which is a mind-body wellness program. Oh my goodness, that's a juicy bio. Okay, Cindy Kramer guides women in midlife who feel like they don't know who they are to find themselves by connecting with their female ancestors. And welcome to Elizabeth Kipp. She's been here a time or two with me. She's a stress management expert who helps her clients unleash their healing power through a number of powerful modalities, including ancestral clearing. I cannot wait for you all to hear a little bit about these powerful healers, and especially the chapters that they're gifting you all in this beautiful book that we have coming up. We're going to launch this book June 1st of 22. So we're getting excited about this. Bernadette, you're going to start this party off. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
My amazing chapter, chapter 22. I'm really excited about it. And I love that you refer to it as a gift, because it does feel like a gift to myself and to the audience. My book chapter is entitled, "You Can Take This Coat and Shove It, Breaking the Shackles of Religious Abuse and to Discover My Own Sovereignty." And in this chapter, I tell a intimate story of a day when I just decided no more having my hands and feet and mind shackled by family and this religion that just didn't allow me to spread my wings. And I think many people can relate to that experience somehow, just being cornered and told what to do and how to wear my hair and how to react and just swallowing all of that for so long, and just decided one day, no more. And I walked out of my family, that religion, away from it all. And it's an emotional journey. I get emotional thinking about it. And what I know is healing happens by being witnessed. And so I am grateful to be witnessed in my healing journey, to share about that one day and how it has changed the trajectory of my life.
It takes massive amount of courage to walk away from your family and everything that you've known. So I'm chuckling a little bit because I hear it a lot. And then one day I decided to be out of there, right? Like, tell me a little bit more about that journey of making the decision and actually being able to take action.
Laura, I'm so glad you asked, because it wasn't when you think about a decision, it means you've considered this. You've thought about, one day, plan for it. I did not. What I did was I decided I didn't want to continue going to the Kingdom Hall. I decided that I didn't agree with so many of the principles. I believe in pro-choice, and that was not an option there. I was told I needed to believe a certain thing about my body and any woman's body. There were just a number of things that I just swallowed, how wives were to be and how I was to be, and no one cared about how I felt or what I thought. It was what I was supposed to do. And so I didn't have a plan, but this particular day, that enough's enough happened. And there was no plan. I did not know where I was going. Everyone I knew was part of this religion. So to step out of that, and it's been 30 years now, but since then I've had no relationship with my mother as a result of it, and my siblings. So it was a stand for me and for what mattered to me. It wasn't a plan. It was an in the moment decision that I'm so glad I had the courage to do it. And it took a lot of courage to stay in it. It was not easy, but I did it. And I'm better for it.
Yeah, no joke on that. I know for me, a deal breaker moment had to do with the stress and anxiety and fears and everything was manifesting literally in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I had thought to myself one day about making this big decision that, oh my gosh, if I don't take this action for myself and prioritize my own self, I'm going to have a heart attack or something.
Mm-hmm. Or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So deal breaker moment for you was there one or not really?
That particular day, I was cooking, and my then husband came home from the Kingdom Hall, and asked I asked him, would he like rice or potatoes? And he didn't answer me because I was on punishment. That's what would happen when I wouldn't go. And something about this cycle of, I'm not talking to you because I'm angry. I knew in my spirit, this is not right. This is not okay. And the only option was to go along, to get along, just for the peace of the house. But that meant going against what felt right to me. And this particular day, I just decided no. And in the chapter, I speak about my 6-year-old daughter, who I could not take with me. I didn't know where I was going. I certainly didn't know how to bring her along, and so the courage mounted. It just mounted. I walked into the room, grabbed my keys, and decided I'm leaving. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I wasn't staying. And so his attempts to stop me from leaving, because he just wanted me to stay. And I can't live like this. I won't live like this. And I'll figure it out outside this house, but I won't do it here. And it took an awful lot of courage to say no to this patriarchal way of living, this insistence on falling in line, not having an opinion or thoughts and ideas, to just fall in line. No, just no.
Thank you,
it's a complete sentence.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thanks for saying yes to the project and for giving us again the gift of your beautiful chapter. Can't wait for everyone to read it. Okay, we're going to ask you more about a couple of things in a minute or two. Cindy, I want to move to you. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Thank you. So my chapter is number 17, and it is called Awaken Through Your Ancestresses, Reveal the Truth of Who You Are. And in my chapter, I tell the story of how I basically found myself by learning about my unknown grandmother. So I had grown up most of my life not knowing anything about my dad's side of the family. I didn't know much about his parents beyond their names and where they lived. And I always kind of felt like part of me was missing, like there was something missing inside of me by not knowing about them, and particularly about my grandmother. I'm not sure why. I just always was curious about her, wanted to know about her, dreamed of meeting her one day. So of course, when I was a child, I didn't have the means to do that. But as an adult, with the advances in technology and ancestry.com and Google, I was actually able to find some information about her. I tracked down her daughter, who's my dad's half sister, who he had never met. And after meeting her, we kind of put together the pieces of her life, and she was quite an enigma, as it turns out. So my dad had only known about her up to the point in his life where he had kind of separated from her. And my Aunt Sharon didn't know anything about her before the point in time where she was born. So between us, we kind of put together all the pieces. And what I was amazed to discover is how similar I am to her. Just some of the things that I'm interested in, and also some of the struggles that I went through. And I kind of started to realize, how much these things get passed down to us through our genetics, even if we don't even know the people that we inherited them from. So this has really kind of turned me in a new direction in my life, made me want to help other women kind of put these pieces together for themselves. And so that's what brought me to this point, and to my interest in being in this book.
You're making me think of the word that you use, ancestress.
Ancestress.
Which before
Yes.
I read that in your chapter and with what you were doing, I hadn't seen that word typed anywhere, ancestress. Tell me more about like that, and how you decided to use that word, and really kind of what you want people to know about that.
I mean, by its definition, ancestress means female ancestor. But to me, the word ancestress just feels so much more powerful. I mean, the ancestor as a word is masculine in origin, and I wanted to convey like the feminine power behind the women who came before us. And there is a lot of power there that gets forgotten about in a lot of like genealogy research. The records are, based on the male side of the family. It's, the man's name that gets passed down through generations, stuff like that. So I really wanted to convey the power and the feminine power that is within our female ancestors.
So tell us just a little bit more about the tool that you're offering. Don't give it all up, but give us a little sneak peek of that.
So the tool that I have included in the book, we start off by basically mapping out who your female ancestors were. And then I take the readers through an exercise to kind of the same way I figured out with my grandmother, to look at both what the gifts were that were passed down to me, and also kind of like the struggles or burdens that passed down, which both of them are a huge part of what makes each person unique. Even the struggles you go through are part of your life's purpose. They were passed down to you maybe because they were unresolved in previous generations. So I really think that's part of why we are here, and that they were passed to us as part of our purpose to work through them, both to heal for ourselves and for the women who came before us.
That is, you're giving me I get a light bulb moments, aha moments from you guys like all day long when you're talking about these subjects. But to think about the struggles being passed down as part of the purpose is really interesting to think about, because then we can stop judging so much about these horrible things that were passed down to us and that, that we're stuck with or whatever. But if we look at that as a gift, and you also just talking about the tool that you're teaching, these are gifts of awareness. That's an awareness tool that you'll bring us through. Oh my goodness. If you're watching, get ready for the toolkit that is this book, because these generous, amazing experts are offering their master tools to you to bring you a step further on your journey. I get so excited by you all and just what you've done in the world and your purpose and everything. So again, thank you for being amazing. Cindy, I can't wait for everyone to read your tool and your whole chapter and get a little bit more into this subject. Elizabeth, are you ready to tell us about your chapter?
I am, and I'm so excited to read Cindy and Bernadette's chapters. It's so exciting to be in partnership with this whole, all these authors in the ancestral healing arts. It's exciting. So my chapter is chapter 8, Ancestral Roots, Sacred Bonds with Earth and Her Creatures. In the last 2 books in this series, I went into the burdens and leveraging that as a way to heal the lineage. And then this one, I just came in with straight up gift. I just came, which was, a lot of people say they're born with a green thumb. I was born with 10 green fingers. And you can see, I don't have a lot of light here. It's just east light, but these things are, thriving. Anyway, it's just part of the package of Elizabeth. And what's interesting is we actually have records going back 9 generations in my family. And there's, you go back there and there's this connection with the land that's really powerful, really powerful. And one side of my family has a beautiful conservatory outside of Philadelphia in Kennett Square called Longwood Gardens. That's national in the National Registry. That's my family heritage, right? Anyway, I grew up kind of being put in a garden situation with the orchids growing around. My mom grew orchids, so I'd see them and she'd bring them down on display. I remember walking up to them and they're so beautiful, and I would put my nose in them and there was no smell. And I'd like, what happened to the flower? And my mom would say, orchids don't smell. Well, what was interesting was later when I got married, I married an orchid specialist, and we were able to put a greenhouse together, and he started growing all these beautiful orchids, and a lot of them smell. For instance, vanilla is an orchid, and it has a beautiful scent. We all are familiar with that, right? So that was a partial truth my mom told me, right? So, and I also grew up, when I visited my grandmother in the summer, on my father's side, she took me into her salad garden. And I mean, I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I started there, and she would teach me how to, pick the salad and take care of the plants. And so I started pretty young. Anyway, so I talk about that in my chapter. And what was really interesting was, and I talk about this in my tool, was I not only had this connection with both sides of my family and the connection into plants and living things. Of course, there was also this connection with animals. But I later, as I got older and kind of got into my own spiritual practice, I too walked away from the kind of the family tradition. I'm like, yeah, this isn't working for me. I'm going to go do this thing the way I want to do it. Like, I was kind of one of those too. I learned a deeper connection, which was this profound listening ability. It's really a technique that you can do, and I talk about it in my book. Really profound listening, so that when sitting in nature, you're realizing how truly connected you are. People say, oh, we're connected. And in quantum physics, they say, we're not connected, we're entangled, right? They talk about that. I take you into an experience. I teach you how to actually have an experience of that. It's not just a mental thing, it's an actual experience of really being truly connected to all life. And I feel like that was a gift that the ancestors just passed right on to me. So that's what my chapter's about.
I love it. I'm laughing over here too, because I'm looking at your beautiful greenery and my tiny one over there. And I'm like, all right, I need a couple of more. I would have never said I was a green thumb, and definitely not any other fingers, but I'm doing better in my old, wiser age now that I can make things grow and keep them alive. I think it's really because of the love and joy energy I've learned to practice in my spaces, right? What was that experiment? Did any of you remember the experiment they did where they talked to the plants and they could see, or the water? There was a water one too,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
What was
Yep.
that, Elizabeth? Do you remember?
Well, that was a Japanese man whose name I don't remember right off the bat, but he's really famous. He was very famous for that. And what they found is that the actual, when certain words were used, the water structure changed, and it would get very chaotic, or it would get very beautifully geometric depending on what the word was. And so
Yes.
when we talk to our plants, since they're mostly water, just like we, and when we talk to each other, right? What we say, our words, as a vibration, like all life is a vibration. Every thought energy is a vibration. The vibration we're putting out, it affects everything, which is why your plants are doing better, because you're more conscious of your space, because your words are more conscious, perhaps.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, this is such a perfect way to move into this next question that I have for all of you, because to me, ancestral healing and talking about vibration made me think of this too. It's magical. It's like this idea, and it's what I said earlier about my mission, really waking the world up to what's possible for healing. Well, when you understand what's possible, all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I might be able to do this and this and this, right? And you didn't know it a moment before. It feels magical to me. So, okay, Cindy, this is going to come to you first, right? This next question. So I'm coming around to all of you for this, but when you learned about ancestral healing, that it was possible to connect with your ancestors and work through modalities that help you heal the things in your life going on now that you want to change, I want to know, what was one of those aha moments for you? What did you realize was possible?
I think the fact that learning through, healing your ancestors can help you in your current relationships, like looking at things that happened in a relationship, like between my parents and their parents, and seeing how some of those things have gotten passed down to me as a mother, definitely made me more aware of those patterns. And knowing about it has helped me, decide, do I want to continue that pattern, or is this the time for me to make that change? Am I the change that needs to happen? So that was really eye-opening for me. Another example is with my own husband, just being able to understand him from the perspective of being the recipient of ancestral patterns, and using that to help, understand each other better.
I love that example so much. I love that aha. I think everyone, I can see y'all nodding your head. Like I think relationships is one of the biggest ahas, right? And we heal in relationship to other humans who are in our inner circle. That's a big one. Okay, so Elizabeth, how about you? When you realized what was possible with ancestral healing, can you remember one of those moments for yourself?
Oh yeah, I remember the moment. And Bernadette's already brought the word in, unshackled. Unshackled, because I talk about it a little bit in the other two books. The burden that I felt from the family because of the violence that it's just a lot of history of that, and I felt the weight. I walked around with the weight of that for my whole life, and then this ancestral clearing came in, and I'm like, what? This is amazing. So I've done I really did a lot of work on that, and I thought it was so cool understanding quantum physics, like the present moment, we can access past, present, and future, which is why, of course, ancestral healing arts work. As we do the work in the present moment, both our past and our future generations get healed as we get healed. So that was just huge for me.
Yes, huge. I love the what? That's it. Like we could just repeat. That is exactly the reaction when you have a moment and you realize what's possible. Like it's magical. I hope that I say magical enough times in this interview for our viewers to be like, okay, I got to figure this out, right? I need to buy this book when it comes out. Bernadette, what would you add? What was the aha for you?
The aha for me, when I think about my ancestors and ancestresses, thank you very much, Cindy. I think of the way, well, what I'm reminded of is the way those who were enslaved had to use their bodies to convey messages, to keep themselves safe. So they used dance, capoeira, and things like that to tell stories and to also share. They couldn't take up space, so I'm breaking that. I'm using the space well. I'm using my voice. I'm breaking that generational need to be quiet and still in so many ways. So I feel like that lineage is there. The propensity to be small and not express is there, but I'm also looking at that example, looking at the brilliance of how safety and how stories were told just in song and movement. And so even in the tool in this book, using dance as more than just survival, but to express emotions. And so that's what I'm doing with my tool, and I can see how it was done in the past because of how it had to be done, but the learning that I get from hearing those stories and what I'm projecting going forward.
Yes, I love being embodied means you're healing. I think it's very, very simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's really important for people to understand that is a big aha, is come back in, y'all, come back in.
Come back in and not keep it in. Come back in and
Yep.
learn to express that in a healthy way. It's not hurting others or yourself, but to just move these emotions. And I think that's a healing that is needed all over the place.
Yes, all over the place. Okay, ladies, let me ask you this next one. Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you for this. So we author experts, we love to talk about ourselves as guides and facilitators on the journey. We don't fix people. We empower them to connect with their own inner wisdom. And I know you all understand that being a healer, a true healer, authentic healer, that is what we do, right? We don't fix people. We help them fix themselves. And nobody needs fixing, really. This is just a discovery journey that we're all on. But Elizabeth, what's one way you can help our listeners feel empowered today? What's the message?
With the tool that's always with them, the breath. The breath is the beginning. I say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And where does the Word live? It lives on the breath. It lives on an exhale. So the quality of our breath determines the quality of our life. And I wish I had learned that in pre-kindergarten.
Yes.
The power of a conscious breath, right? Just, as Bernadette said, come back into the, and Laura said, come back into the body, rest in the breath, nice, deep, even inhale and exhale. Do that 5 or 6 times and see what happens. It'll change your life. 11 minutes a day for 40 days, really change your life.
Oh, think about that, y'all. There's a practice. Okay, I'm going to be asking these ladies a question in a minute about their practices, and what an incredible one Elizabeth just just gave you. Okay, Bernadette, how about you on this one? What's a way you can help our listeners feel empowered?
Love the breath. 11 minutes a day, Elizabeth. That's awesome. I'm going to be counting minutes today and let that happen. The truth of what is, to step away from this, I'm fine, take a moment because you matter. I would empower people to be honest with what is and give others the opportunity to show their humanity because they got your truth. To stop lying to yourself and others and stop with the I'm fine and tell the truth. I think it all connects us and we all get to see that other people are real feeling beings.
I'll have to shout out a friend of mine real quick, Bernadette, because she has a class, a workshop called F Being Fine.
I love that title.
And so Lori Seitz, if you're listening to this, you go girl, right? So like we need to get back to the truth of it and be real with each other. Yeah. Awesome, Bernadette. Cindy, how about you? How do you want to help our listeners feel empowered today? What would you say?
I would just ask them to remember that they are here for a reason. The thousands and thousands of generations, the thousands and thousands of ancestors that in the generations before them, they came together in this very specific combination that created each of us for a reason. So every one of us has value. Every one of us is important. Every one of us has a purpose. We're all worthy and we all deserve the best out of this life. And we should never let anything hold us back from that.
Love that message. Thank you, Cindy. You know, all of you are gifting chapters that enhance the awareness. You've all talked about it in your different ways today. When we can learn something heard in a different way, said in a different way, we wake up in that moment, and that moment itself is just a tiny bit of healing. I love that. I love that there's that possibility happening all day long. Really, if you are in the moment and paying attention, you can have ahas all day. You can see miracles all around you. And it's this ancestral healing topic. So I want to thank Amy Gillespie Doughtery for putting together not only this stellar group of author experts for this book and her entire series. Amy, we wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much for the bigger vision and for trailblazing this topic and this community and this awareness. Because I know it's changed my life just reading all your all's chapters, really understanding something different, that some different way I could think about it, some other aha that I could have thinking about. I think a lot about my both sides, but a lot about my dad and his parents and that side of the family who were lines of entrepreneurs. So it's no, secret that I would be an entrepreneur eventually. I have so much good juju from those entrepreneurs that came down the line and gave me all their gifts. We tend to think about the negatives a lot, but we don't always celebrate the gifts that came through. So again, Amy, thank you for the theme of this book. Seriously, like to celebrate those gifts and really look at that purpose coming on down the line for us to take advantage of. So one more question for all of you today. I love this question. And Bernadette, I'm going to start with you. So I believe feeling is healing, and feeling is an awareness practice. We talked a lot about that today. So helping people to feel is part of this for me. What does your personal practice of awareness look like in your day-to-day? Name something that you rely on in your practice.
I rely on putting my feet on the earth. I rely on being in nature. Elizabeth spoke about that connection, and it's so true. The sound of the ocean, I get to it as often as I can. So it's going to be some connection with nature because it teaches so much in its stillness and in its movement and in its vibrancy and its color and change and shift, and that we are not static. We can move, we can take up space, we can be amazing and big and huge. Yeah, embrace change. And watch nature. Let it be your guide, because it is teaching us all day long.
Nice. Thank you, Bernadette. Cindy, how about you?
I would say the practice of gratitude is probably a big one for me. I mean, no matter what we go through in our lives, there's a lesson we can learn from it. I recently went through the death of my dog unexpectedly, and I was so overwhelmed with grief from that. But I eventually was able to find gratitude for the time I had with him, the lessons that he taught me. So every day I try to find the lessons that I've learned from what I went through that day. And I always say thank you to my ancestors for their role in bringing me to this life that I'm living today.
Love that one. Thank you, Cindy. And Elizabeth, you're going to close us out today. Tell us a little bit about yours.
Yes, so Cindy brought up relationship, and Bernadette brought up the ocean, and I'm going to put them together. It's interesting the way the three of us, we just got put together so beautifully today. My practice really begins every day with relationship to myself, connection to consciousness. And in the metaphor of the ocean, consciousness is the ocean, and I'm a wave in the ocean. So no matter kind of what the wave looks like, I'm still in the ocean, right? And for me, that's really important because my ego and my conditioning can try and tell me the story that I'm disconnected, and that I'm not important, and that I don't matter, and all the negative things that that the mind can the direction they can go. And I like to start my day in this centered space, because when I do, the rest of the day is this kind of epic day, and I kind of stay out of that forest of negativity. And when I don't, if I get too rushed, it's still a great day because I also have a gratitude practice. So anyway, that's my practice, is to really connect with myself and consciousness in the field, and understanding that we're not just, as quantum physics says, we're not just all one. We're entangled with one another. That's how connected we really are.
Yes, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Authors, to all of you today, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everybody. I want the listeners today to understand that this is just like the little first step. And if you scroll down into our show notes, you're going to find these authors' bios and their websites. And I want you to take the next step and go explore their worlds and see what they are up to, because they're up to some pretty awesome things. And not only the chapter that they wrote for this beautiful book, The Ancestors Within, but all of their other offerings. So you can find that all down below. And just one more time, authors, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
So listeners, remember to join us for our live stream book launch party. We're going to have that on June 7th at 12 noon Eastern. I'm going to gather with all of the Ancestors Within, the Volume 3 authors, and we'll be doing some fun giveaways. You're going to find that on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I've got you hooked up below with that too. And if you happen to be listening to this after that June date, well, that means this book is ready and it's on Amazon, and you need to go grab your copy right now and dive into this ancestral healing journey. You will be amazed. And lastly, everybody, I want you to remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. It's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Bye, authors.